Hello and welcome to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, your weekly dose of the top pro-life news and issues, all from a Catholic perspective. I am your host, Catherine Hadro, in our Washington, D.C. studio. Thank you for joining us. In this week's show, David Daleiden tells us what it was like when Planned Parenthood officials were publicly under oath on the witness stand for the first time since his undercover videos were released. A former Planned Parenthood president is targeting children with her latest project, We Speak Out, and this.
It's very evident that Sisters of Life are women who are in love with Jesus, who is love himself.
The Sisters of Life give us a rare glimpse into their Washington, D.C. convent. But first, our top story, the Supreme Court announces it will hear an abortion-related case this session. The High Court will hear a challenge to Louisiana's Unsafe Abortion Protection Act. The law requires abortionists to have admitting privileges at a local hospital within 30 miles of the abortion facility. The case, called June Medical Services LLC versus Gee, is the first big abortion case granted since President Donald Trump's two Supreme Court appointees, Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh, took the bench. Abortion advocates claim the law could force the closure of some of the state's few remaining abortion facilities. The Supreme Court temporarily blocked the Louisiana law from taking effect back in February when Chief Justice John Roberts joined the court's 4 justices who are perceived as liberal and put it on hold. While the Supreme Court's new term began this week, arguments in that Louisiana case won't take place until the winter. A decision is likely to come at the end of June, about 4 months before the 2020 presidential election. Louisiana Attorney General Jeff Landry joins us now from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He asked the Supreme Court to review this case. And Marjorie Dannenfelser, president of the Susan B. Anthony List, joins us from Washington, D.C. Thank you both for being here.
It's great to be here.
Great to be with y'all.
Attorney General, first off, what is the key question at hand the Supreme Court justices need to answer in this case?
So basically, there are going to be 2 questions that the court is going to be looking at. Number one, does the state of Louisiana have the right to require admitting privileges for doctors in abortion clinics? That case is actually different. It's patently different from the Texas case. And then the second question is whether or not we're going to continue this abortion distortion in the legal realm that allows third-party standing in these types of cases. And so it's really 2 great questions, and we're excited to be before the court on both of them.
Marjorie, the question everyone else is asking is this the case that could overturn Roe v. Wade? What's your response to that common question?
Well, I wish it were that simple, and I wish it could be so. I think it's probably most likely that it will test the Planned Parenthood versus Casey undue burden test. So is this an undue burden on the so-called right to an abortion for women? I think it'll test and put into question some of the abortion jurisprudence throughout the decade since Roe versus Wade. And I think our great hope is that it would erode it. It seems unlikely that it would completely overturn it, but the Supreme Court could use any case involving abortion law if it were really motivated to do so. My thought would be that they would not, but God is good, so we'll see.
Attorney General, journalists are describing the Louisiana law as virtually identical to the Texas Hellerstedt law that did not hold up at the Supreme Court. But can you clarify, what are the distinctions? How does the Louisiana law differ from the Texas law?
Well, a lot of what you hear is the propaganda from those pro-abortion forces that are basically trying to say that Louisiana's law is identical to Texas. It's absolutely not true. In Hellerstedt, the state of Texas specifically carved out admitting privileges only for abortion clinics. That's not what happened here in Louisiana. Here in Louisiana, Representative Katrina Jackson, a black female Democrat, authored this law to basically bring abortion clinics inside of the regulatory scheme in Louisiana. So basically, we had an exception for abortion clinics in Louisiana, and all we're doing is taking that exception really away, really in order to ensure the health and viability of women in Louisiana, because anywhere else that those women go to any other healthcare clinic for any other surgery or procedure under which they'll be mildly sedated, those doctors are required to have admitting privileges. So we're just bringing those abortion clinics into the regulatory scheme and making sure that women at those clinics are treated the same as they're treated everywhere else in clinics around Louisiana.
Marjorie, the decision in this case is expected just months before the presidential election. Do you expect the ruling could have an impact at the ballot box?
Yes, I think that one effect of it will be to raise the profile of the issue so that it's a much discussed issue in the waning months of the campaign, which is good for us, especially given that the facts of this case wildly benefit the pro-life side. Almost every demographic polled in this gives us about a 70% advantage over the other side. That's looking at millennials, Democrats, pretty much across the board, over 70%. If you can find that level of issue on your side in abortion, in politics in general, you run with it. And this president actually was over at the campaign today. This president knows how important this issue is. He knows how it's not only the right thing to do, it's the politically smart thing to do, and this will help him.
Attorney General, abortion advocates claimed the process to get hospital admitting privileges was tedious and an undue burden. But from your understanding, is that true?
No. In fact, what we've seen in Louisiana is that abortion clinics actually have performed poorly in regards to procedures that they're performing on women. And so again, in Louisiana, if you go to any outpatient clinic, anyone, or for any other type of procedure, doctors in those clinics are required to have admitting privileges. Why wouldn't we do the same to safeguard the health care of women in Louisiana? And I believe that the answer to that question by the Supreme Court is going to be yes. It's within the policing power of the state.
Marjorie, is it beneficial to the pro-life movement that the Supreme Court is taking up this case?
I think no question that it is. Regardless of the result, it will again elevate this to a very public conversation on an issue that really cuts our way. It really advantages the pro-life movement. It also highlights the hideous underbelly of so-called medicine that abortionists occupy in this country, and also highlights some of the if with our help and your help, Catherine, highlight some of the horrible scenarios, the horrible situations, such as the Gosnell Clinic and then just recently the piling up of the broken bodies of children in that horrible abortionist office in Indiana. I think, you can't help, but when you really look head on at what this issue is and you're hearing those stories, it helps galvanize and form consensus in America in general, and that's good for the pro-life movement.
Attorney General, to follow up on your last point, as a legal expert yourself, how likely do you think it is the High Court will rule in favor of your state's law?
Look, I like the chances that we have here in Louisiana and in front of this court. What's also interesting is that the court actually took up a cross petition that we filed, and that is whether or not actually the court will allow third-party standings in these cases. In all other areas of the law, as you go before the court requires that the party before them is the actually aggrieved party. But again, we've created this abortion distortion in the legal realm when it comes to abortion cases. And so the court taking that motion up, that writ, I think is paramount. I think it's a great question before the court, and I think it'll have a huge impact on litigation moving forward if they answer, if they basically say that, hey, we're going to treat all cases before the court the same, which they should, because the law is supposed to be equal.
Marjorie, finally, in February, Chief Justice Roberts sided with the 4 justices perceived as liberal, Kagan, Ginsburg, Sotomayor, and Breyer, to put Louisiana's law on hold. Does this signal anything to you about what the potential ruling may be?
No, it really doesn't. AG Landry, you will probably be better equipped to answer this question, but politically I would say we're always tempted to listen to any of these decisions by the court through a political filter. What this was, in my understanding, was more of a procedural decision and procedural move. So I would separate it from any concerns about what the result of from the Supreme Court will be.
Attorney General, last word. Any thoughts to that question?
Yeah, I think she answered it well. I will tell you that I was excited. I did not look into this in any way in saying that Roberts was siding with the liberal wing of the court. In fact, in the Oberfeld decision or Hellstadt decision, Judge Roberts dissented, so he would have upheld Texas's admitting privileges case. So again, this is why I believe we've got great chances before the court. I think that what Justice Roberts did was stay the law so that we could take this take this case before the court. So again, I look forward to getting before the court on these two questions, and I think it's going to have a significant impact on litigation moving forward.
Really insightful conversation. Jeff Landry, Attorney General for the state of Louisiana, and Marjorie Dannenfelser, President of the Susan B. Anthony List. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
There is less than a month until another open season for the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, rolls around. But before that, we need the Trump administration to take urgent action because currently Obamacare allows insurance companies to collect an abortion surcharge in a single payment instead of collecting it separately. This is a misinterpretation of the law put into place during the Obama administration and means the abortion surcharge is hidden, and many pro-life consumers are accidentally paying for this coverage. Fortunately, last year, an official in the Trump administration proposed a new rule change which would correctly interpret the law regarding the abortion surcharge. But that vital rule change has yet to be finalized, less than a month out from Obamacare open season, which brings us to this week's call to action. Go to ProLifeWeekly.com where you can send an email directly to the Trump administration to say, please promptly finalize this pro-life rule. Again, there's less than a month to go until Obamacare's open season, so the Trump administration needs to act quickly to finalize this rule and ensure pro-life Americans are no longer tricked into paying for abortion and their own health care plans. Congress has failed to approve legislation to remove abortion from Obamacare, so we need the administration to take action. Here's how you can help. You can send your email message directly to the Trump administration by going to ProLifeWeekly.com. Again, that is ProLifeWeekly.com to tell them to promptly finalize this pro-life rule. Turning now to our next story, undercover journalist David Daleiden is back in court amid Planned Parenthood's civil lawsuit against his group, the Center for Medical Progress. Planned Parenthood filed the civil court lawsuit taking place in San Francisco in response to Daleiden's 2015 undercover videos. The Center for Medical Progress video series alleged the abortion giant executives were selling body parts of aborted babies to researchers for profit, which would violate federal law. Planned Parenthood denies the allegations. This follows a criminal lawsuit also surrounding Daleiden's investigation into Planned Parenthood. The preliminary hearings in that case concluded in September. We recently spoke with Daleiden fresh off the conclusion of those hearings where Planned Parenthood officials took to the witness stand for the first time. Here's our interview. And joining us now from EWTN's Christ Cathedral Studios in the Diocese of Orange, California, is David Daleiden, the Center for Medical Progress founder and project lead. David, welcome back to the show.
Great to be here.
David, these hearings marked the first time Planned Parenthood officials were publicly under oath on the witness stand since your undercover videos were released. What did they reveal?
So the big reveal is that Planned Parenthood's top-level executives and abortion doctors admit under oath on the witness stand that the videos are true. The videos are true, and at the highest levels, they've been selling baby body parts in exchange for money for decades.
And David, what did you reveal during your testimony?
During my testimony, I talked a lot about my motivations for doing a long-term, in-depth undercover study of Planned Parenthood's participation in the harvesting and trafficking of aborted baby body parts. I talked about a lot of the background research, including scientific literature review and speaking with stem cell and other scientific experts, reviewing the somewhat limited amount of prior news reporting that had been done on the phenomenon of harvesting and selling baby body parts, and really being shocked that a lot of this information, while it had been exposed and there had been a lot of very serious allegations of violent criminality in the harvesting and selling of baby body parts as early as 1999 and 2000, for about 10 years, there was no follow-up from any major pro-life group or any major advocacy or investigative journalism organization. And there had just been no follow-up, and no one had looked into it, and it was still going on. So that really motivated me to do this project.
In your opinion, what was the most striking moment during the hearings? For those of us not inside the courtroom, what should we know?
You know, I have to say that there were striking moments every day, whether it was longtime Planned Parenthood abortion providers admitting that it was a regular occurrence for them to be trading baby body parts in exchange for money, whether it was the Attorney General's office's lead investigator admitting that he just fast-forwarded through the videos and didn't actually watch them. So he wasn't looking for our intentions to gather evidence of violent crimes. He wasn't looking for whether they could be overheard. All he was looking for was to identify Planned Parenthood personnel and abortion activists on the videos who could be plugged into a predetermined outcome of a prosecution.
The Center for Medical Progress's Twitter account, which was live tweeting the hearings, was briefly suspended during this trial. What happened there, and has there been an explanation from Twitter?
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. So CMP was reporting live on the proceedings in this public preliminary hearing in a public courtroom open for anybody to walk in and watch and listen to what was going on. We were not the only ones who were reporting live from the courthouse what was going on. There were pro-abortion reporters, there were neutral courthouse news reporters, outlets that were actually live tweeting the proceedings. But Planned Parenthood's lawyers and the Attorney General's office both got very upset that the details of what was going on in this public preliminary hearing and in the public testimony was being reported. And they were very upset that it was being reported from a source like Center for Medical Progress instead of from a source like Rewire, which is a pro-abortion blog. So they threatened us in the courtroom, tried to get the judge to sanction us or to somehow shut it down. And then when that didn't work, and the judge said that he's not going to attack anybody's First Amendment rights the way that Planned Parenthood or Kamala Harris or the Attorney General's office does, then they went and just reported it to Twitter and lied to Twitter that these proceedings were somehow under seal. They insinuated that we had a recording device inside the courtroom or something like that. There was nothing of the kind. People had their pens and paper notepads, were taking notes, and then going outside the courtroom afterwards to report about what was going on. But they lied to Twitter and accused us of doing things we weren't doing, and Twitter didn't bother to check the facts. They preemptively shut down all of our tweets about this and deleted all of them. We went through the normal Twitter appeals process, and within a couple of hours, all the tweets and the full functionality of our account was restored. So there's not been any kind of apology or explanation from Twitter as to how that happened, but I think that the fact that we were able to get it restored in just short order by going through the normal processes shows you that it matters that Twitter is now under serious scrutiny from the pro-life Trump administration and from others in Congress who are really concerned about the monopoly that Silicon Valley tech giants are wielding on our free speech right now. So that shows that elections matter.
And David, were these hearings a result of Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris's time as California Attorney General?
They were the direct result of Kamala Harris prostituting her powers as the top law enforcement officer of the state to her political backers and political donors at Planned Parenthood. This case is not based in the facts of what happened or in the law in the state of California. It's based solely in serving Planned Parenthood's political narrative and what they wanted their hand-picked Attorney General in California to do for them.
And finally, David, what's at stake here for the Center for Medical Progress and this investigation into Planned Parenthood, and what is next?
Planned Parenthood is manipulating the legal system and using the legal system as a tool to attack the whistleblower and to try to shut down free speech and to attack the First Amendment civil rights of myself, of the Center for Medical Progress, and really of all Americans to engage in protected journalism activity and to read and watch the results of that activity. I'm flying up to San Francisco in just a day or two here for the beginning of the federal jury trial in Planned Parenthood's civil lawsuit against me and several of CMP's undercover investigators and against the Center for Medical Progress. We're going to be in federal court in a 12-member jury trial against Planned Parenthood in San Francisco for the rest of the month of October. And a lot of the same Planned Parenthood leadership and their top abortion doctors that your viewers are familiar with from the videos are going to once again take the witness stand under oath, and they're going to have to admit their involvement in the harvesting and sale of baby body parts. So I'm looking forward to the facts coming out.
David Daleiden, Center for Medical Progress founder and project lead, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much.
When we come back,
it's a life of really a life of love.
we give you a rare glimpse into what life is like for the Sisters of Life. Stay tuned as EWTN Pro-Life Weekly continues after this break. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I am your host, Catherine Hadro. The former president of Planned Parenthood is targeting children with her latest project. That is this week's Speak Out segment. Cecile Richards, who up until last year led Planned Parenthood for over a decade, is re-releasing her memoir, Make Trouble, but now targeting young readers. Her memoir, Make Trouble, outlines Richards' rise to the top of the abortion industry. The publisher of the new Young Readers edition of the memoir bills it as recommended for grades 5 and up. Richards suggested on Twitter that her followers, quote, pre-order a copy today for the young activist in your life. Cecile Richards' memoir is packed with pro-abortion propaganda. She portrays the Center for Medical Progress undercover videos as a deceptively edited smear campaign. She portrays Wendy Davis's filibuster against abortion restrictions as heroic, and she portrays abortion as necessary for women's equality. Richards has financially benefited in the past by advancing abortion for our littlest of children, and now she wants to financially benefit from children again with the re-release of her book. You know, you can't judge a book by its cover, but we can judge it by its contents. And just because this book is repackaged for young readers, the abortion propaganda inside remains the same. Remember, there is something you can do to counter today's culture of death. Follow this week's call to action. Go to prolifeweekly.com to send an email to the Trump administration to finalize the pro-life rule requiring the separate collection of the abortion surcharge in Obamacare plans. We often feature prominent pro-life lawmakers and advocates, but it's really hidden prayer that can do the most to advance the pro-life cause. For this week's Pro-Life Focus, we introduce you to a group of religious sisters who defend life as part of their vocation.
Sister Lucy, have you been down to the Holy Land Shrine since you've been here?
Yes.
Yes.
So
That's lovely.
Tucked away in what's known as DC's Little Rome, a Catholic enclave in our nation's capital, you'll find the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception, a Franciscan monastery, and, as of recently, an added convent for the Sisters of Life.
I love it. It's wonderful. It's a life of really a life of love.
Giving your life to Christ is the greatest adventure.
While religious sisters typically take 3 vows for poverty, chastity, and obedience, this order takes an additional 4th vow to protect and enhance the sacredness of every human life.
We believe in the beauty, the dignity, the sacredness of every human person. And all of our life, our work, our prayer revolves around that.
It was for that very reason that in 1991, New York's Cardinal John O'Connor founded the Sisters of Life. Starting with 8 sisters, the order has since grown to over 100 today, and they've spread across North America. The sisters' home base remains in New York, but they gave us a glimpse into their new DC location, which is home for the sisters who are studying, as well as a refuge of prayer. Their white and navy habits here may look uniform, but how these sisters came to wear them varies from person to person.
I just experienced this invitation from the Lord to come and to follow him. And I was very drawn by the charism of life.
I felt called to religious life in 6th grade, but I was like, no way, God, like crazy. I don't want to do that. But over the years, the Lord really spoke to my heart, and I began to consider a religious life more. And it was in university I really said yes to the Lord, but I still didn't know exactly where I was called. But it was a friend who had went to World Youth Day Australia 2008, and she met the Sisters of Life there, and she told me about them. And when I went on the website, my heart burned. I was like, this is my heart. I can't believe they exist.
The Sisters of Life is both an active and contemplative order, which is reflected in how they care for human life. They are active in their outreach to women in unplanned pregnancies.
We serve women who are pregnant, very vulnerable, often to abortion, and walking with them, giving them the support they need, material, spiritual, emotional support they need to be able to continue with their pregnancy. In one of our houses, we actually invite them to live with us during their pregnancy, which is so beautiful.
They also have a mission dedicated to hope and healing for women who have undergone an abortion.
We invite women to come to the mercy of Jesus. There's nothing bigger than the love and mercy of Jesus Christ.
But all of the Sisters of Life's work is an outpouring of love from their contemplative time spent in prayer.
Prayer is everything. Prayer is everything. Our whole life rests on and flows from prayer. So we spend about 4 hours a day in prayer as sisters, and it all comes from the Eucharist, really. Our first work is prayer and being with Jesus in the Eucharist, and all our missions flow from that.
In the community, it's very evident that Sisters of Life are women who are in love with Jesus, who is love himself.
With a spiritual lens, these sisters bring a powerful insight into the pro-life conversation.
So many women who have experienced an abortion find themselves really struggling with deep grief, feelings of guilt, shame, anxiety, depression, and often feelings of isolation from God, from others, a real sense of being totally alone, and sometimes even feeling rejected. Also not knowing that they're lovable. And so we invite women to come to the mercy of Jesus.
If there was a woman considering abortion, I would want to tell her that she is not alone. I'd want her to know that she doesn't have to face this unexpected pregnancy by herself, that she can reach out to us, and we're here to accompany her, to listen to her fears, her hopes, her dreams, her desires.
The battle for the pro-life cause can be contentious in our culture today, but just open the doors into the Sisters of Life house, and you will find a peace and joy for life that is anchored in prayer. To learn more about the Sisters of Life, please visit sistersoflife.org. That does it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. Until next time, be sure to reach us at prolifeweekly@ewtn.com or connect with us on social media. Just search for EWTN Pro-Life on all the major platforms. And remember, life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.